Oh, it says 15 minutes. They told me I had all morning to give a dissertation on Canadian micro-market structure, which is why you're all here this morning, I know. Good morning, everybody. Friday morning, end of a long week, in particular for me. As the CEO of the Canadian Securities Exchange, frankly, thanks to the cannabis industry, I've got to go to some really cool places, meet some really interesting people, and literally travel the world over the last couple of years. This year alone, we took a group of cannabis industry thought leaders to the World Economic Forum in Davos. Now, we weren't invited, but we had a dive bar on the main street of Davos, and I have to say it wasn't all that divey, but it was what passed for a dive bar on the main street of Davos. And we put together something called Canada Cannabis House. And again, even though we weren't part of the main conference at all, people through word of mouth found out that cannabis industry leaders from Canada, the United States, and internationally were going to be doing some presentations and offering meet and greet sessions. And as I say, it was almost an out-of-body experience as we met with world leaders, business leaders, investors, and not just sort of small folks, retail folks interested. The leaders of some of the largest pension funds and investment funds in the world were starting to ramp up and to understand and learn about the cannabis industry because they know that this is going to be a key part of their investment strategies in the years to come. Yesterday, I flew back from New York City. I had the, I would say, divided pleasure of being there for UN General Assembly Week. If you've ever been in New York City, UNGA Week, New Yorkers absolutely hate it. It is impossible to get around town. They close every third crosstown street because of a world leader being at the consulate or whatever. Gridlock then spreads onto the north-south streets. It is literally impossible to move around. Even on the sidewalks are packed. It is an absolute horror show. That said, again, the Canadian Securities Exchange, along with a number of our issuer firms and other thought leaders from the cannabis industry, were invited to a session at the staunchest Republican Party club in New York City. And here, with the portraits of Republican presidents dating back to Abraham Lincoln, we were talking about where we've been and where we're going in the cannabis industry. Again, can we imagine that we've gone to that level in only 5 years? So to give you a little bit of context, the Canadian Securities Exchange was first approached by two cannabis issuers, firms that you know, Aurora and Supreme, in February of 2014. They were having a little trouble getting listed on another exchange that's located in Toronto and wondered whether we might be in a position to assist them. So with our listings team, we assembled, we thought about this really, really hard for about 30 seconds. We said, yeah, absolutely. Why not? So when we listed those two companies and the rest of the industry who were absolutely deprived of capital from other sources, they couldn't get banking. They couldn't go to the angel clubs and business accelerators. They wouldn't touch them. Private equity wouldn't touch them. Family offices wouldn't invest in the space. Companies that provide all of the ancillary services that startup businesses require wouldn't do business with these folks. So the Canadian public equity markets were the only place in the world that these businesses could secure the growth capital they needed to build the grow up, to go to Health Canada, to go through that lovely process that so many companies had to endure over the course of months and in some cases years to get that facility licensed by Health Canada. It took a lot of money. And it was Canadian public investors who actually capitalized this industry in Canada first. And then a couple of years later, of course, we had these folks show up from the United States. They said, we hear you've got something going on here. Is there any way that we could access public capital from the Canadian markets? We had to think about that one a little longer than 30 seconds. Because as we know, we have this bizarre situation in the US where it's federally illegal and like way illegal. Thousands and thousands of people in prison in the United States for simple possession offenses. But at the same time, you had a number of states, an increasing number of states that were legalizing for medical and full legalized recreational uses, and were looking to address the past injustices that had been visited primarily on the African American and the Hispanic communities, as well as deprive organized crime of a key source of funding, and to open medical research and science to the potential benefits of the cannabis and hemp plants. So we managed to work our way through, with the support of the regulators from the securities industry across Canada, who, I got to tell you, are not normally the most forward-thinking or risk-taking type folks. But the approach we took was that you should disclose the legal risks of operating, the business risks of operating in the particular jurisdiction. And with that, we were prepared to accept your company as a listed company, and that you could then go and raise money from Canadian investors. And increasingly, what we have seen, and as Jay said, Toronto, Canada became the center of finance globally for the cannabis industry. So within a short period of time, you had, again, household multi-state operator names like MedMen led the way, and then Harvest and Acreage and Curaleaf and Green Thumb Industries and Cresco Labs and a whole bunch that I'm forgetting. But now multi-billion-dollar companies with operations across the United States. We're now talking to folks in Israel. We had the first couple of Israeli companies are listed. We'll see a cohort of another 3 or 4 within a relatively short period of time. For those of you who wonder why Israel, Israel is very forward-thinking in terms of the use of cannabis products to treat post-traumatic stress syndrome. Guess what? With everybody serving the Israeli military and with the issues that they're dealing with, there are a lot of people that need help over there. They have a tremendous database of human research, and they continue to lead the way on medical research in particular. There are going to be some very, very interesting companies coming from Israel. We have our first 2 Asian companies. Thailand has legalized for medical purposes and looked to open up cultivation and medical research in that jurisdiction. And as I say, we have our first 2 companies from there. The Caribbean Basin will be represented shortly. Our first German company listed a few weeks back. And of course, they're looking to supply and work with the liberalizing medical market in Germany. Again, just an amazing story that a startup Canadian exchange that's only 15 years old has become the global center of finance. We have 177 companies in the cannabis space. 77 of them have operations in the United States of America. In the last 18 months, those companies have raised almost $6.5 billion. An incredible story that has, I think, helped seed many of the companies that are here, most still private. But again, they have a clear path to raising additional capital to be able to support their vision, their dreams, their hopes. And I think what it's really all about is the improvement of the lives of so many people that stand to benefit from many of the products that these companies are creating. And for me, that's one of the most exciting things. You know, yeah, recreational legalization, I think, is sound social policy. And this is Richard Carleton talking, not the Canadian Securities Exchange, by the way. But I think what's so exciting about this space is that we have all of this anecdotal evidence about how different formulations of the cannabis plant can address various issues that people are suffering from around the world. And because of that history of prohibition, we just don't have the science to support that anecdotal evidence. And now we're going to unleash the entrepreneurship, the academics, everybody to actually build out the case and understand what it is, why it is it seems to be such a powerful means of, as I say, life improvement for so many different people. And I think as time goes on, and it's not going to be overnight, this is a 5 to 10 to 15-year track, which is great because arthritis and inflammation and pain is probably one of the key things, and I'm suffering from, every day it gets worse, so I'm all over it. But I think that is really what is the most exciting thing about this industry as we move forward. And I'm so proud, and on behalf of the folks at the Canadian Securities Exchange, we are so proud to have been able to play our role in helping to bring this industry from darkness into the light. And we're pleased to be able to partner with Jay, his team at Business of Cannabis, and all of you here today in order to make these dreams a reality. Thanks again, and have a great day.